Have you ever had a migraine headache? Brother, if you've ever had a migraine headache and you don't sympathize with a person who has a headache, you got to be inhuman. Because the pain of a headache can be devastating. I have seen migraine victims where the doctors have given them every help possible by the strongest drugs in the world, and yet the agony of the migraine continues and the doctor is helpless. Oftentimes, these things can be tracked back through hypnoanalysis, and we can find out what causes them. And in finding out what causes these illnesses, and in revealing the cause to the patient and giving the patient insight, these illnesses have a tendency to disappear. Those of you who have seen stuttering cases, have seen me work with stuttering cases, in which the person comes in with a terrible stutter and walks out of here without one, and 3 years later still doesn't have a stutter. These are rare. These are rare, but they happen. And those of you who have seen me work with migraine cases, and the person walks out without a migraine and years later still hasn't had any more migraines, these cases are rare. But because they lose their stutter or because they lose their migraine doesn't mean that they lose the need for help. They've just lost those things. But I have found that if a person has one illness such as that, the chances are there are others lurking and ready to spring. And that patient must be put into a state in which he can live with himself, or herself, as the case may be. I'm going to show you hypnoanalysis tonight with the understanding that each patient that I work with should have further work done by the doctor. Now, let's try a headache case first. And I want you to know that all I ask you to do when you come up here is to follow instructions. Since I must show things to the doctors, after all, this is a classroom, I cannot work with anyone who resists. Because if you resist, if you sit up here and say, go ahead, try and make me reveal the cause of my headache, you can keep your headache. I don't want it. You know, and I may sound hard, perhaps. Or it may sound like a joke, and I don't mean it as a joke at all. I just mean that I will help those who stand ready to be helped by following orders. And you must follow orders if we are to get our results. So, the first name I saw there was Miriam Sturgeon, migraine. Is she here? Come on up. This is, whose patient is this? This is,
Dr. Schneider.
Dr. Schneider. Miriam Sturgeon, is that right?
That's right.
Miriam, if you don't mind my calling you that, because I'll have to call you that when we take you back to childhood and so on. How long have you had your migraines?
As long as I can remember.
You've never been...
Before school.
Even before school started?
Yes.
Okay, now, you know that a person isn't born with a migraine. A migraine has to start somewhere. You realize that?
Yes.
And our whole purpose right now is to find out when they started and how they started and what caused them. So, will you just sit back comfortably in your chair, take a good long deep breath, and close your eyes. Miriam is then taken into the somnambulistic state of hypnosis. After the hypnosis, she is questioned as follows. You must understand that Miriam has been regressed to the age of 6. Miriam, do you know what a headache is? You're 6 years old. Do you know what a headache is?
No.
No, never had a headache. Don't know what a headache is. All right. Now, when I snap my fingers, we will promote you to the 2nd grade. And you'll be in the 2nd grade, and you'll see that even clearer than the 1st. Watch. There we go. You're in the 2nd grade, Miriam. Where are you sitting in this room?
I'm near the back.
Near the back. Look catty-corner across the room at the kid furthest from you. I want you to be able to see that child. Who is that? Well, when I snap my fingers, you'll know, you'll see that child, whether it's a boy or a girl, and just who it is.
We moved. It's a different school.
Oh, it's a different
school. I didn't go there very long.
You didn't go there very long. All right, then I'm going to ask you, Miriam, but you can see the room very clearly, though, can't you?
Yes, I know the teacher.
Uh-huh.
I was sick.
Uh-huh. You were sick.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And what were you sick with, Miriam?
I had an ulcered tooth.
Uh-huh. Miriam, do you know what a headache is?
Yes.
You do know what a headache is.
It hurts.
Have you ever had a headache?
Yes.
Well, then there's something that happened that made a little girl, something that happened to a little girl between the time she was 6 years old and 7 years old that caused a headache. So when I snap my fingers, it'll be the day of the first headache. Here we go, just about an hour before the headache. Where are you, Miriam?
Outdoors.
What are you doing?
I started to play, but the sun's so hot. I don't feel good.
Uh-huh. And what's been happening today?
We didn't go on a picnic.
Oh, there's a disappointment there. You didn't go on a picnic, and a little girl feels bad about it. Is that right? Uh-huh. Now we're going to find something out, Miriam. You didn't go on a picnic, and then the sun got hot and you got a headache.
And vomit.
Where?
So sick.
You
Throw up.
You threw up and vomited. Tell me, Miriam, when you heard you couldn't go on the picnic, were you awfully disappointed?
Yes.
Awfully disappointed. You'd never had a headache up to that point, had you?
I don't think so.
No. And then right after, now, when I snap my fingers, they'll be telling you you can't go on the picnic. Tell me if it's a very big disappointment to you, will you? Here we are. I'll snap my fingers. It'll be when they're telling you that you can't go on the picnic today. Is it a very big disappointment to you, Miriam? But now, a little bit later, we find that the sun gets hot and Miriam has a headache. Now, Miriam, could it possibly be that maybe you were so disappointed at not going on the picnic that it made you sick? Could that have been, do you think?
Yes.
Could have been, huh? In fact, it seems to you very much like that's what happened now. Is that right? Well, Miriam, if that's what happened, then I can tell you that every headache you've ever had since that day has the same elements in it as the first headache, because when the same emotional circumstances recur, that same headache would recur. So now we're going to the second time you ever had a headache, and we'll know what day this is. Where are you?
At home.
At home. What's happening?
We have company.
You have company. And what's...
A lot of people.
Yeah, and what...
My cousins.
Yeah.
From Greensburg.
Yeah, what's happening?
We're going to stay home.
You're going to stay home instead of going where?
Out for a ride. We
Do-
have company.
Would you rather go for a ride or would you rather stay home? You'd rather go for a ride. So we find the same situation again, that here's Miriam suffering a disappointment, and it translates itself into a headache. Is that right, Miriam? So now let's find out the third headache you ever had in your lifetime, and if we're still right, that'll contain the same elements as the 1 and 2 headaches. Now watch.
My family's there.
Yeah,
We're going to start on a trip.
you're going to start on a trip, and what?
My daddy's sick. He has a headache.
Your daddy is sick and has a headache?
Can't go. Nobody else drives.
And you can't go because nobody else drives. And there you have the 3 headaches which formed the habit pattern. And now, Miriam, if we're right, the very last headache that you ever had in your lifetime will have the same elements in it that the first headache had. So, if we're absolutely right, and I think we probably are, we're going to the day of the last headache, and now when I snap my fingers, you'll know when that was. When was that, Miriam, your last headache?
This afternoon I had one.
Yeah. Now, what happened today?
I couldn't get to Bloomington in time for the children's party at school.
Do you see the similarity?
I tried so hard.
Sure you did, Miriam. You see the similarity between those 3 headaches and what happened today?
Yes.
Session 7 continues with hypnoanalysis almost to the end of the class. We find this to be one of the classes which the doctors find most interesting, for it is at this class that the doctors bring their neurotic patients.